Hey guys, welcome back to the Comic Book Lowdown. I'm Wellington, and this is kind of an impromptu video just to kind of get my opinion and feelings off my chest about the subject. Subject that really should be either good news or just regular news, but either way it is big news, and it's been out for maybe a day or two now. And that's Marvel after the Secret Wars event, that Marvel is going to have their flagship Spider-Man, their main Spider-Man title, be the Miles Morales version of Spider-Man, who survives Secret Wars and all that kind of stuff. And Peter Parker will kind of be their reserved Spider-Man. They're kind of number 2 title Spider-Man. The way Miles was before Secret Wars, Peter Parker will be after. Now, it is good news in the fact that you get to have a new perspective on Spider-Man. The Miles Morales character will get more limelight, more story told. I mean, by the time he came around, the Ultimate Universe was pretty much just his book. And his book is fantastic, but everything else in the Ultimate Universe everybody seemed to hate, besides his book. So that's good news that we're going to be able to continue the story of Miles Morales and everything he's about, while we still have Peter Parker Spider-Man, whichever Peter Parker Spider-Man they decide to adapt after Secret Wars available. I've heard theory of the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man being the Peter Parker that they kind of adopt going along. So he'll be married to Mary Jane, and they'll have a daughter, and he will kind of given up being Spider-Man, or kind of what it means to be Spider-Man before having a child, and adopting the ideas of what it is to be Spider-Man when you have something to protect and something to lose, which everything kind of allows for a larger story, new stories to be told. So that's the good thing. The thing that would make it kind of no news would be, the tendency for these things to kind of reverse themselves. So sooner or later, Marvel or the Peter Parker character might kind of blow up again, especially around when the new movie is going to come out, which Tom Holland was just announced to be the new Spider-Man, to be cast as the new Spider-Man for this new iteration of movies. I'm not familiar with the actor, but Marvel has made incredible casting choices throughout the board, or across the board, so I'm not worried about that. So that's what would make it no news. The thing that would make it kind of bad news would be just kind of the nostalgia, the kind of fact that even I can acknowledge the fact, and I know many people acknowledge the fact, that Peter Parker will always be Spider-Man. He's always the first and foremost Spider-Man. If you're going to talk about Spider-Man in any kind of discussion of history or just what it means to be Spider-Man, Peter Parker is the first and the one and only, the one that is he's Spider-Man. He is Spider-Man. And I think we can all agree on that. But the issue comes when people aren't able or aren't willing to, or downright just angry at the fact that Peter Parker won't be showcased as the main Spider-Man. And what has me take issue with that is that it's not only because the flagship Spider-Man won't be Peter Parker, but it's because of race. And that's an issue. That's an issue because Miles Morales himself, the character, acknowledges in the book, the writers have the character acknowledge in the book that Peter Parker is Spider-Man to him, Peter Parker is Spider-Man to everybody else. Everybody, at least in the Ultimate book, has now known Peter Parker was Spider-Man. They all mourned his death. Everybody acknowledges him acknowledges Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Yet people are still taking offense that Marvel decides to use Miles Morales as their Spider-Man and are counting it off as being just to be politically correct or to be PC. And the same thing with, I don't know if I'm spoiling this for anybody now, but if it is, it's regarding Thor. Same thing with Jane Foster being Thor. They're talking a woman being Thor can't happen. I don't understand. This is stupid. It's just to appease women. It's just to appease Miles Morales being Spider-Man. It's just to appease black and Hispanic people. And that's an issue because the characters are beyond race. There are some characters who are defined, or partly or mostly even defined by their race, that you cannot change their race because that is part of who the character is. Characters like Luke Cage, characters like Black Panther cannot have their races changed because it changes their origins. It changes who they are, changes the character that they are. You can't have Black Panther be a white guy or a Hispanic guy because T'Challa is the king of an African nation. That's where he comes from. That's where his roots come from. You can't have Luke Cage be a white guy, or actually, you can have Luke Cage be a white guy, but he does lose some of his origins. Kind of growing up as a street tough and kind of dealing with race issues in his time and things like that, but you can still make that and apply that to being a white person. If you take the Eminem, Marshall Mathers approach and put a white male, same kind of characteristics as Luke Cage, just make him white and put him in a predominantly black or Hispanic neighborhood, he will feel as the outcast, and you can continue doing the story as such. But a character like Black Panther, which people always bring up, I hear the argument so many times, like, oh, Captain America's black, they might as well make Black Panther white. It's not the same. Captain America is a representative of a wider nation. He's the face of America. America being a melting pot, a place where all nationalities can come together. It's all about diversity. Yet the opponents, the people who hate things like Captain America being black, hate Miles Morales because he's not Peter Parker, but mostly because he's not white, because a lot of people don't have a problem with Ben Reilly, they don't have a problem with Kane, they don't have a problem with Jessica Drew, they don't have a problem with all these white characters, even the female ones who adopt a Spider-Man-esque persona. Even Ben Reilly took over Peter Parker as Spider-Man for a while, and people still seem to like the character today. But really, the one main Spider-Man character who's not white seems to get a lot of hate, even though his character and his story is very rich and very new and very unexplored yet. He's not a very old character, he's very new still. So the hate really comes from the way I feel it, the way I see it, the way I hear it, and the way it hits me is coming as we don't mind if Peter or Spider-Man is adopted by another face. It just has to be a white face. Now everybody, like I said before, everybody acknowledges that Peter Parker is Spider-Man to them. Like if I type in Spider-Man onto the computer, I'm going to get Peter Parker. He's the main Spider-Man. I know that, you know that, my mom knows that. But the fact that people can't adjust their ideas of Spider-Man to encompass what, it really means to be Spider-Man at the core. I know Peter Parker makes the character of Spider-Man, but you can hear in interviews with Stan Lee, who is even himself opposing the Miles Morales idea of Spider-Man, but even his interviews beforehand, the way people talk about what it means to be Spider-Man, to the reader, it's Spider-Man can be anyone and anyone can be Spider-Man. If I read Spider-Man, I can put my own voice, I can put my own ideologies into Spider-Man because he wears the mask. Once the mask is on, his identity is secret from all. And it's not about who's under the mask, it's about what they do under the mask. And you don't have to be a white person, you don't have to be a black person, you don't have to be a Hispanic person to do what Spider-Man needs to do. You can be any one of them and do what Spider-Man needs to do. And people have always said that Spider-Man can be anyone. But yet now when Spider-Man is not Peter Parker or not white, there's a huge uproar. And so it really gets me mad because a character that is really an interesting character, a character that is just being well written right now by Bendis, and just has a lot to give, is really hated on because of his color. And it's really just disappointing that in 2015 we're still at a point where our heroes can't be accessible to all people, pretty much. So, and I'm not sure of how the YouTube comic book community feels about it. I haven't seen anybody else's stance on it. This is really my response to what I've seen from people that visit my actual comic book shop, their opinions on it. And there's actually, once I get my computer open, I just read an article kind of exposing, I wasn't familiar with the person until today when I read the article, and I might even link it to the video. It's a comic book owner by the name of Larry Doherty. He runs, I think it's just called Larry's Comics. I've got it open now. Yeah, he runs Larry's Comics in response to Miles Morales being the flagship character or flagship Spider-Man at Marvel. He posted 2 tweets that are just really extremely racist jokes about it, and then defends it, and then after being called out not only for the tweets, which he took off, and then being called out for his defense of the tweets, he then gives a half apology and then continues to defend himself for his extremely racist jokes, extremely racist towards black people, in regards to Spider-Man. So, just people like that, people like this Larry Doherty character, who are supposed to be upstanding business people. You know, if that's how you feel about Miles Morales being Spider-Man, and then you make this joke, which is just offensive to all people of color, really, even if I'm not even black, but I'm offended by this, because that's how he feels about a non-white Spider-Man. Not because Peter Parker isn't Spider-Man, but because the Spider-Man is also not white, because it's not a joke that is related to Spider-Man not being Peter Parker. It's related to a black person being Spider-Man, which is the problem. People aren't up in arms about Peter Parker not being Spider-Man, because he's still Spider-Man. He is still Spider-Man. That's what people are not acknowledging. Peter Parker will still be Spider-Man after Secret Wars. He just won't be the flagship Spider-Man. He's not going to be promoted as much as the main Spider-Man title. If they were doing Amazing Spider-Man would be Miles Morales, and Spectacular Spider-Man would be Peter Parker, pretty much. So it's just, again, really disappointing, really disheartening. I don't know if a lot of people understand what it means for people who aren't white, people of color, to have a character like Miles Morales. It's not like something that you go marching to freaking the Washington Monument for, but it's finally a character that someone like me can relate to more. I can relate to Peter Parker. I love Peter Parker. You guys know I love Peter Parker. I'm a humongous Spider-Man fan. My favorite character, Spider-Man, the only iteration that I consider to be my favorite Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So when I say my favorite character is Spider-Man, I'm talking about Peter Parker. I'm not talking about Ben Reilly. I'm not talking about Billy Braddock, the British Spider-Man. I'm not talking about Spider-Ham. I'm talking about Peter Parker Spider-Man. But even I, as a Peter Parker supporter and enthusiast, can recognize that the hate for Miles Morales is not based on him not being Peter Parker. It's based on him being black -- Hispanic, half and half, pretty much. And that is not good. I remember a time in my life, back when I was in high school, actually. It was like a dress like a superhero day, and I went as Thor. I even have pictures of me as Thor, and I went as Hispanic Thor. So I didn't even have blonde, long hair. I put a black wig on because I have black hair. And I tried to look more appropriate for me, because I'm still representing who I am through the guise of Thor. And I've had people come up to me and be like, you can't be that character because you're not the same color as that character. Well, what am I supposed to do? Characters of color are not very well represented in comic books, unfortunately. And characters like Miles Morales continue to forward this march for diversity that needs to happen. It's not political correctness that's happening here. It's a change. It's a well-needed change. It's a much-needed change to diversify comics more so than they are. Before Miles Morales, we really only have Luke Cage. We have, Black Panther, characters like Blade, characters like the Falcon, and again, the Falcon, secondary character. Blade, he's not very much of a character who is mainstream, at least not anymore. Spawn is another character, but he's from Image. Image is still not as well known to the massive public as Marvel or DC. Static Shock, he has the cartoon, but then what else? His comic isn't even being published anymore right now. It ended very quickly. Nick Fury, but Nick Fury is not. He's not a Spider-Man. He's not a Captain America, and he's not a Thor. That's the reason. Besides Black Panther, Black Panther's the only character of color who has really any kind of desire for people to see. People want to see the Black Panther movie really bad. They also want to see the Luke Cage show, and they want to see Luke Cage and the Jessica Jones show. I understand that. But again, in relation to the amount of white male characters that dominate superhero comics, it's it's a wide ratio favoring white male characters. I don't have a problem with, Iron Man being a white man, and I don't have a problem with Hulk being a white man when he's not a green man, but I do have a problem when people pick on race because it's different. It's still racist, even if you don't say it's not, or even if you say it's not. So if you can say, if you put a but in your sentence when you say, oh, this, I don't want to sound racist, but the next thing you're going to say is going to be the most racist thing, and it's going to reflect your actual opinion. So if your opinion is that Miles Morales, if your opinion is Miles Morales shouldn't be Spider-Man, the main Spider-Man character, because you don't like the character, you don't find him interesting, that's one thing. You can find something not interesting that I find interesting, and I can find something interesting that other people don't find interesting. I like the Daredevil movie, and I like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie. A lot of people hate it, both of those things. But if you make an argument that Miles Morales isn't Spider-Man, and you use the fact that he's a black character at all in your argument, it's already a flawed argument, and it's a heavily racist argument. And unfortunately, that's the argument that I've been seeing mostly. I haven't seen what the YouTube comic book community has said, or if anybody has said anything. This video might strike debate and opinion and things like that. Hopefully, I hope to see a lot of people in support for the Miles Morales character, especially since the Peter Parker character is not even going anywhere. It's not like he's dead again. It's not like he's just not being recognized. He will still be there. And that's just, this argument is already 22 minutes long. I don't want to go any further. I feel like I've made my point and beat it to death already. But it's disheartening to see such bigotry from my peers, pretty much. I consider comic book readers and comic book enthusiasts and superhero enthusiasts my peers, and to see such bigotry from them is very disheartening. But anyways, I'm Wellington, signing off for the Comic Book Lowdown, and I'll see you guys next time.